The bullet missed Abigail Palmer's head by inches, and she did not even flinch as she continued counting coins behind the counter of her general store in Sloan, Nevada, in the summer of 1882. "You going to help me, or just stand there pretending you did not hear that shot?" The drunk miner stumbled out of her store, and Abigail finally looked up with ice in her gray eyes. "I heard it. Happens every Saturday when the mines pay out. Now are you buying that tobacco or wasting my time?" The miner tossed coins on the counter and left muttering about cold women. Abigail did not care. She had heard worse. At 23 years old, she had been running this store by herself for 2 years since her father died of consumption, and she had learned that sentiment got you nowhere in a town like Sloan. The silver mines brought rough men, gambling brought violence, and love brought nothing but pain. She had watched her mother waste away loving a man who drank himself to death, and she had sworn at 15 that she would never be so foolish. The bell above her door chimed again, and she looked up expecting another drunk. Instead, a tall man with sun-darkened skin and startling green eyes stepped inside. He wore dust-covered chaps and a hat that had seen better days, but there was something different about him. He moved with purpose, not the stumbling gait of men who spent their pay on whiskey. "Help you?" Abigail asked, her tone flat. "Need supplies. Heading up to work the Patterson Ranch. Heard this was the only honest store in town." His voice was deep, with a slight drawl that suggested Texas origins. "Only store, period. The other one burned down last month." She gestured to the shelves. "Take what you need." He walked through the aisles, and she noticed he moved quietly for a man his size. He had to be over 6 feet with broad shoulders that came from real work, not the kind of bulk men got from just being large. He selected items carefully, checking prices, putting some things back. A practical man, then. When he brought his items to the counter, she tallied them up. $7 even. He paid without complaint, then paused as she wrapped his purchases. "You run this place alone. Is that your business?" "No, madam. Just seems dangerous for a woman alone." His green eyes held genuine concern, not the leering interest she usually got. "I have a rifle under this counter and I know how to use it. Anything else?" He smiled then, and it transformed his face from merely handsome to something that might have made another woman's heart skip. Abigail felt nothing. "No, madam, thank you kindly." She watched him leave, then forgot about him as 3 more customers came in before closing time. By the time she locked up and climbed the stairs to her small apartment above the store, her feet ached and her back was sore. She ate cold stew standing at her window, looking down at the dirt street where men stumbled between saloons and somewhere a piano played badly. She did not see the tall cowboy again for 3 days. When he came back, he bought a few items and asked her name. "Abigail Palmer." "Why?" "Just being neighborly. I am Grant Owens." He touched his hat brim. "Most folks call me Grant, Mr. Owens." She handed him his change. Their fingers brushed and she pulled back quickly. "You ever take a day off, Miss Palmer?" "Why would I do that? Most people enjoy a Sunday rest." "Maybe attend church, see friends." His tone was conversational, not pushy. Abigail laughed, and it was a harsh sound. "Church? In Sloan? The last preacher left 6 months ago after someone shot out his windows. As for friends, I have my store and my accounts. That is all I need." Grant studied her for a long moment. "That sounds like a lonely life." "Lonely implies I want company. I do not. Anything else, Mr. Owens?" He picked up his purchases but stopped at the door. "You know what I think, Miss Palmer. I think someone hurt you bad and you have decided the whole world is not worth trusting." Abigail felt anger flash through her, hot and unexpected. "You do not know anything about me. Maybe not, but I know loneliness when I see it. I have been there myself." He settled his hat. Good day, Miss Palmer. She fumed for an hour after he left, slamming items around harder than necessary. How dare he presume to know her mind? She was not lonely. She was practical. She was safe. She was in control of her own life, and she needed no man telling her otherwise. A week passed. Grant came in twice more, buying small items, always polite, never pushing. The second time, old Mrs. Henderson was in the store complaining about her arthritis, and Abigail watched from the corner of her eye as Grant helped the elderly woman carry her purchases to her wagon without being asked. He refused payment, just touched his hat and walked back toward the ranch. "That is a good man," Mrs. Henderson said. "You could do worse, Abigail." "I am not interested in doing anything at all, Mrs. Henderson." Abigail returned to her ledger. "Your mother, God rest her, would want you to be happy. My mother died at 40 looking 60 because she spent her whole life crying over my father. I will not repeat her mistakes." Mrs. Henderson sighed. "Not all men are like your father, child. Maybe not, but I will never find out." The third week of August brought unusual heat even for Nevada. The store was stifling despite Abigail keeping the door open. She was reorganizing the fabric section when Grant walked in carrying something large wrapped in cloth. "Afternoon, Miss Palmer." She climbed down from her stepladder. "Mr. Owens, I was not expecting you until next week. Not here for supplies today." He set the wrapped object on her counter. "Made you something?" Abigail stared at him. "Why would you do that?" "Because I wanted to." "Open it." She should refuse. She should tell him she did not accept gifts from strange men. Instead, curiosity won, and she unwrapped the cloth to reveal a beautifully carved wooden sign that read Palmer General Store in elegant letters, with small flowers carved in the corners. "I noticed you did not have a proper sign," Grant said. "Seemed wrong, a fine store like this with no name on it." Abigail ran her fingers over the smooth wood. "It was quality work, probably took hours. I cannot pay you for this. Did not ask you to. It is a gift." "I do not accept gifts." "Why not?" "Because gifts come with expectations." She pushed the sign toward him. "Take it back." Grant did not touch it. "The only expectation I have is that you might smile, just once. I have been coming in here for 3 weeks and I have not seen you smile yet." "I have nothing to smile about." "Sure you do. You have a successful business, you are healthy, the sun is shining. Those are all things worth smiling about." He leaned against the counter. "Or maybe you forgot how." "Maybe I choose not to. Maybe I see the world clearly without illusions like love and happiness that just disappoint you in the end." She crossed her arms. "Maybe I prefer honesty to false sentiment." "That is not honesty, Miss Palmer. That is bitterness." His voice was gentle, not accusing. "And I think you wear it like armor. You do not know me well enough to think anything about me. Then let me get to know you." "No." "Why not?" "Because I do not want to." "Because you will leave like everyone leaves, or you will die like everyone dies, or you will turn out to be different than you seem. Either way, it ends badly." She had not meant to say so much, and she hated the vulnerability in her own voice. Grant was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "What if I could prove you wrong? What if I could show you that not everything ends badly?" Abigail laughed, and this time it was bitter. "You cannot prove that. Give me a month." "What? 1 month? Let me court you proper, take you to dinner, show you around. If at the end of that month you still think love is not worth pursuing, I will never bother you again. But if I am right, if you find even a small part of yourself that wants connection, then you have to admit it, at least to yourself." His green eyes were steady on hers. "This is ridiculous." "I am not some prize to be won. No, you are a woman who is so scared of being hurt that you have stopped living, and that is sadder than any heartbreak I have ever seen." He straightened. 1 month, Miss Palmer. What do you have to lose? My time, my peace, my routine." Your walls, you mean. Your carefully constructed fortress against the world. He smiled slightly. But those walls are also a prison, are they not? Abigail wanted to argue, but something in his words struck too close to truth. She looked at the sign, at the careful workmanship, at the time someone had taken just to do something kind. When was the last time anyone had done anything kind for her? When was the last time she had let them? 1 month, she heard herself say. But there are rules. Name them. You do not come by the store except for actual business. You do not interfere with my work. And at the end of the month, when this does not work, you accept it gracefully and leave me alone. Agreed, on one condition. What? You have to actually try. No sabotaging because you are scared. You give this an honest chance. He extended his hand. Deal. Abigail looked at his hand for a long moment. This was foolish. This would end badly. She knew it with the certainty of someone who had seen too much pain. But something in her, some small voice she had buried years ago, whispered, what if she shook his hand? His grip was warm and firm. Deal, but you are wasting your time, Mr. Owens. We will see, Miss Palmer. He touched his hat brim. I will pick you up Sunday at noon. Wear something comfortable for riding. I did not agree to riding anywhere. You agreed to let me court you. That involves leaving this store occasionally. He was almost to the door when he turned back. And Miss Palmer, thank you for taking a chance. I know it was not easy. After he left, Abigail stared at the sign for a long time. Then, against her better judgment, she hung it above her door where everyone could see it. It looked nice there, professional. That was the only reason she kept it, she told herself. Not because it made her feel something she could not quite name. Sunday arrived too quickly. Abigail spent the morning telling herself she could still back out, but when noon came, she was wearing her riding skirt and a simple white blouse, her dark hair pulled back in a practical braid. She hated that she had checked her reflection 3 times. Grant arrived precisely at noon on a beautiful chestnut mare, leading a gray gelding with a gentle eye. Miss Palmer, you look lovely. Where are we going? She ignored the compliment. There is a canyon about an hour north. Most beautiful spot in Nevada, in my opinion. Thought you might like to see it. They rode out of town, and Abigail had to admit it felt good to be out of the store. She rode well, having learned as a child before everything went wrong. The gray was well trained and responded easily to her commands. Grant did not push conversation, letting the silence stretch comfortably. They passed old mining claims and scattered Joshua trees, the landscape harsh and beautiful in the way only the desert could be. Finally, he spoke. Grew up in Texas. Small ranch outside of San Antonio. My father raised horses and my mother taught school. They died of fever when I was 20, lost both of them in 1 week. His voice was matter of fact, but she heard the old pain underneath. I am sorry. It was hard. I spent a year angry at the world, pushing everyone away. Thought if I did not care about anyone, it could not hurt again. He glanced at her. Sounds familiar, does it not? Abigail said nothing. Then one day I was at my lowest, sitting in an empty house full of ghosts, and my mother's best friend showed up. She brought food and she sat with me, and when I tried to push her away, she said something I never forgot. She said that closing your heart to protect it from pain also closes it to joy, that living half a life is not living at all. He adjusted his reins. She was right. Took me time to see it, but she was right. What happened to her? She passed 2 years back. But before she did, I promised her I would live fully, that I would take chances, that I would not let fear rule me. He looked ahead at the canyon coming into view. That is why I came west. Fresh start, new people, new possibilities. They reached the canyon and Abigail caught her breath. Red rock walls rose on either side of a small stream, and cottonwood trees provided shade. Wildflowers grew in impossible places, and the water sang over smooth stones. "It is beautiful," she said quietly. "See, some things in this world are worth seeing, worth experiencing." Grant dismounted and helped her down. His hands on her waist were brief and proper, but she felt the warmth of them even after he stepped away. They sat by the stream and Grant pulled out a basket. "Brought lunch. Nothing fancy, but I can promise it is edible." He had packed bread, cheese, cold chicken, and apples. Simple food, but good quality. They ate in comfortable silence, and Abigail found herself relaxing despite her determination not to. "Tell me about your mother," Grant said. Abigail stiffened. "Why?" "Because she clearly matters to you, because I want to understand you." She was quiet for so long he probably thought she would not answer. Then she said, "She was beautiful once. I have seen pictures. Dark hair like mine, but she had blue eyes where mine are gray. She was always smiling in the old photographs." Abigail pulled her knees up, wrapping her arms around them. "Then she married my father. He was charming at first, I am told, swept her off her feet with big promises about the life they would have. What happened? He drank. Not at first, but after a few years. Lost jobs, got in fights, spent money we did not have. My mother worked herself to the bone trying to keep us fed, trying to keep him happy, trying to fix something that could not be fixed." The words came easier than she expected. "I was 14 when he died in a saloon fight. Stabbed over a gambling debt. My mother cried for 3 days straight, cried for the man who had made her life miserable. I could not understand it. She loved him. She was a fool." Abigail's voice was hard. Love made her weak, made her settle for crumbs when she deserved a feast. Made her waste her whole life on someone who never deserved her. Maybe. Or maybe love is more complicated than that. Grant skipped a stone across the water. Maybe she knew something you are too afraid to learn. What could she possibly have known? She died at 40, looking 20 years older, with nothing to show for her life but a daughter who resents her sacrifice. "Do you resent her?" He looked at her directly. Abigail felt tears prick her eyes and hated herself for it. "I resent that she taught me love is suffering. That she showed me what happens when you give your heart away. Yes, I resent that. What if that is not what she was teaching you? What if the lesson was that she loved despite everything, that she chose connection over safety?" Grant shifted to face her fully. "What if the tragedy was not that she loved, but that she loved the wrong person? Then how do you know? How do you know who is right and who is wrong? How do you protect yourself from making her mistakes?" The vulnerability in her own voice scared her. "You do not. You take a chance. You trust your instincts. You stay aware enough to leave if you need to." His voice was gentle. "But you do not close yourself off completely. That is not protection, Abigail. That is just a slower kind of dying." It was the first time he had used her given name, and hearing it in his voice did something strange to her chest. She looked away, blinking back tears. "You make it sound simple." "It is not simple at all. It is the hardest thing in the world. But it is also the only thing that makes life worth living." He stood and offered his hand. "Come on, want to show you something." She let him pull her to her feet and they walked along the stream. Around a bend, the canyon opened into a wider space where hundreds of butterflies danced in the sunlight, their wings creating a kaleidoscope of color. "How did you know they would be here?" Abigail asked, momentarily forgetting her defenses. "Come here sometimes when I need to remember there is beauty in the world. They are always here this time of year." He stood close to her, not touching but present. "See how they are not afraid. They live maybe a month if they are lucky, but they spend that time flying, feeding, living fully. They do not hide in cocoons afraid to be hurt. They also do not have hearts to break. Maybe not, but you do, and a heart that never risks breaking never really lives either." He turned to her. I am not asking you to marry me tomorrow, Abigail. I am just asking you to consider that maybe, just maybe, your walls are hurting you more than any person ever could." They rode back as the sun began its descent, painting the sky orange and pink. Abigail was quiet, thinking about everything he had said. When they reached her store, Grant helped her dismount. "Thank you for today," he said. "I know it was not easy for you." "It was not terrible," she admitted. Then, because honesty seemed to be flowing between them, "The canyon was beautiful." "Good. Next Sunday, if you are willing, I thought we could have dinner. There is a decent restaurant 2 towns over in Hadley, real tablecloths and everything." His smile was hopeful. "I suppose that would be acceptable." High praise from Abigail Palmer, but his eyes were warm, not mocking. "I will see you next Sunday then. 6 o'clock. 6 is fine." She watched him ride away, then climbed the stairs to her apartment. The rooms felt smaller than usual, stuffier. She opened a window and sat in the evening breeze, thinking about butterflies and canyons and a man with green eyes who saw through her armor. This was dangerous. She knew it. Every instinct she had developed over the years screamed at her to end this now, to retreat behind her walls where it was safe. But another part of her, smaller and quieter, wondered what it would be like to fly. The week passed slowly. Grant came by once for actual supplies, tipped his hat politely, and left without lingering. Abigail told herself she was not disappointed, but she caught herself watching the door more than usual. Friday brought trouble. A miner named Jack Cutler came in drunk and belligerent, insisting she had shortchanged him the week before. Abigail knew she had not, but arguing with a drunk man was pointless. "I will check my books. If I made an error, I will correct it. You calling me a liar?" Cutler leaned across the counter, his breath reeking of whiskey. "I am saying I will check my books. Come back Monday when you are sober. I want my money now." His hand shot out and grabbed her wrist, hard enough to bruise. Abigail reached for the rifle under the counter with her free hand, but Cutler was faster. He slammed her arm down on the wooden surface, and she cried out in pain. Then Cutler was flying backward, released so suddenly he crashed into a shelf. Grant stood between them, his normally calm face set in hard lines. "The lady asked you to leave." Cutler scrambled up, reaching for the knife at his belt, but Grant was faster. He had the miner disarmed and pressed against the wall in seconds, his forearm across Cutler's throat. "You are going to apologize to Miss Palmer. Then you are going to leave. Then you are going to remember that this store is off limits to you from now on. Understand?" Cutler nodded as much as he could with the pressure on his throat. Grant released him and stepped back. Cutler mumbled something that might have been an apology and stumbled out. Grant turned to Abigail, his expression shifting immediately to concern. "Are you hurt? Let me see your wrist." "I am fine." But she let him examine her arm. His touch was gentle, careful, going to bruise. "Do you have ice?" "In the back. But really, I am fine. I have dealt with drunk miners before." "Maybe you should not have to." His voice was quiet but firm. He went to the back and returned with ice wrapped in cloth. "Hold this on it." Abigail pressed the cold bundle to her wrist, watching him. "You did not have to do that." "Yes, I did. No man puts hands on a woman like that, not while I am around." He checked the shelf Cutler had hit, straightening items. "You need better protection here. That rifle is useless if you cannot reach it. I have managed fine for 2 years. And how many times have you been grabbed, threatened, had to defend yourself?" He looked at her. "Just because you can handle it does not mean you should have to." Something in Abigail cracked then, some wall she had not even known she was maintaining. Tears spilled over before she could stop them, and she turned away, humiliated. "I am sorry. I do not cry. I never cry." Grant was beside her in an instant, not touching but close. "It is all right. You are allowed to cry. You were just assaulted. Anyone would be shaken. But I am not anyone. I am supposed to be strong. I am supposed to be able to handle everything myself." The words tumbled out. "I cannot afford to be weak. I cannot afford to need anyone. Needing help is not weakness, Abigail. It is human." His voice was so gentle it made her cry harder. "And you have been alone too long." She finally turned to him, and without thinking about it, let herself lean into his chest. His arms came around her carefully, holding her while she cried for the first time in years. Cried for her mother, for her father, for the girl she had been before life taught her to be hard. Cried for all the years of holding everything in. Grant just held her, one hand rubbing slow circles on her back, murmuring quiet reassurances. When the storm passed, Abigail pulled back, embarrassed. "I apologize. I do not know what came over me." "Do not apologize, not for this." He cupped her face gently, wiping away tears with his thumbs. "You are allowed to feel things. You are allowed to let someone help you." She looked up at him, at the genuine care in his eyes, and felt something shift inside her, something that felt like the beginning of trust. "I do not know how to do this," she whispered. "I do not know how to let someone in. One step at a time, one day at a time. And I will be patient, I promise," he smiled. "I have got 3 more weeks to change your mind after all." Despite everything, Abigail found herself smiling back. A real smile, small but genuine. Grant's face lit up. "There it is. I knew you could smile." His thumbs still rested against her cheeks, and for a moment they just looked at each other. Then he stepped back, letting his hands fall. "I should go, but I am serious about better security. I will come by tomorrow and install a bell system, something you can reach easily if you need help." "You do not have to do that." "I want to. Let me do this, Abigail. Let me help." She nodded, too tired to argue. After he left, she locked up early and went upstairs. Her wrist throbbed, but that was not what kept her up. She kept thinking about how natural it had felt to lean on him, how safe she had felt in his arms. That terrified her more than Cutler ever could. True to his word, Grant arrived the next morning with supplies. He installed a bell system that ran from several points in the store up to her apartment, with a lever behind the counter that would ring it loudly enough to alert anyone nearby. He also repositioned her rifle within easier reach, and suggested she keep a small pistol in her pocket. "I know you want to be independent," he said as he tested the system, "but there is no shame in having backup. Even the toughest cowboys ride with partners." They worked together through the morning, and Abigail found herself relaxing into his presence. He told stories about growing up on the ranch, about learning to break horses from his father, about his mother's terrible singing voice and worse cooking. He made her laugh, actually laugh, more than once. "So there I was, 15 years old, trying to impress this girl from town," Grant was saying. "Thought I would show off by riding this wild Mustang my father had just brought in. I lasted maybe 5 seconds before I was in the dirt with a bruised ego and a sprained ankle. Did you at least impress the girl? Not even a little. She married the banker's son the next year." He grinned. "Probably for the best. She had no sense of humor. And humor is important to you. Very. Life is too hard to take seriously all the time. You have to laugh when you can." He looked at her. "You have a beautiful laugh, by the way. You should use it more often." Abigail felt heat rise in her cheeks. "I do not laugh often," I noticed, planning to change that. He finished securing the last bell. "There. Now if anyone gives you trouble, you ring this and I will hear it from the ranch. We have men in town most days anyway. Someone will come." "Thank you." "Really? This means a lot. You are welcome." He packed up his tools, still on for tomorrow night, dinner in Hadley. "Yes, 6 o'clock. I will be counting the hours." He said it lightly, but something in his eyes made her believe he meant it. Sunday evening found Abigail nervously adjusting her dress for the third time. She had chosen her best outfit, a deep blue dress that her mother had made years ago. It still fit well, and the color brought out the gray of her eyes. She told herself she was just being practical, not trying to look nice for Grant. She did not quite believe herself. When he arrived, the look on his face made all the fussing worthwhile. "Abigail, you are stunning. It is just a dress. It is not just anything. You are beautiful." He offered his arm. "Shall we?" They took his wagon into Hadley, a larger town about an hour away. The restaurant was indeed nicer than anything in Sloan, with real china and candles on the tables. The owner greeted Grant by name. "Mr. Owens, good to see you. And who is this lovely lady?" "This is Miss Abigail Palmer." "Abigail, this is Tom Richardson. He runs the finest restaurant in Nevada." "Flattery will get you the best table," Tom laughed, leading them to a spot by the window. "I will have Martha bring out the special." Over dinner, they talked more easily than Abigail would have thought possible. Grant asked about her store, about her suppliers, about her plans for expansion. He listened to her answers with genuine interest, asking intelligent questions. It had been so long since anyone had really listened to her. "You are good at business," he observed. "Your prices are fair, but you do not undervalue yourself. Your inventory is well chosen for your customers. That takes skill." "My father taught me before the drinking got bad. He was actually good at running the store when he was sober. I learned from watching him." She had never told anyone that before, the complicated truth that her father had not always been terrible. Must be hard, holding both versions of him in your head, the good father and the bad one. "It is. I hated him for so long. But lately, I have been trying to remember he was human. Flawed, yes, he made terrible choices, but he was still my father." She looked down at her plate. "I think my mother understood that better than I did. Maybe that is why she stayed, not because she was weak, but because she saw all of him." "Takes courage to revise your thinking like that." Grant reached across the table and took her hand. "You are braver than you give yourself credit for." His hand was warm around hers, calloused from work, strong but gentle. Abigail did not pull away. Instead, she turned her hand to lace her fingers through his. The gesture felt monumental. "I am terrified," she admitted quietly. "Of what?" "This. You, the way you make me feel things I swore I would never feel." Her eyes met his. "What if I let myself care and you leave, or change, or die? What if I become my mother? What if you do not? What if we have years of happiness? What if this is worth the risk?" His thumb stroked across her knuckles. "I cannot promise you nothing bad will ever happen. That would be a lie, but I can promise you that I am here, right now, and I am genuine. What you see is what you get. And I care about you, Abigail, more every day. You barely know me. I know you are strong and smart and funny when you let yourself be. I know you work harder than anyone I have ever met. I know you have walls a mile high, but you are slowly letting me see past them. I know when you smile, really smile, it is like the sun coming out." He squeezed her hand. "And I know I want to keep learning more." Abigail felt tears threatening again. "I do not know how to do this. I do not know how to be vulnerable. You are doing it right now, this conversation. This is vulnerability. This is bravery," he smiled. "And you are doing great." They finished dinner talking about lighter things, but the weight of the earlier conversation stayed with them in a good way. On the drive back to Sloan, Abigail rested her head on his shoulder. It felt natural, like something she had been doing for years. "Thank you for tonight," she said as they pulled up to her store. "Thank you for giving me a chance." He helped her down from the wagon, his hands lingering on her waist. They stood close in the moonlight, and Abigail felt her heart racing. "Grant?" "Yes. I am glad you came to Sloan. I am glad you did not give up on me." The words felt huge, like admitting defeat and claiming victory all at once. His smile was bright enough to rival the stars. "I will never give up on you, Abigail. That is a promise." He did not kiss her, though she could see he wanted to. Instead, he touched her cheek gently and waited until she was safely inside before driving away. Abigail climbed the stairs to her apartment feeling lighter than she had in years. The next week brought changes Abigail had not expected. She found herself looking forward to Grant's visits, found herself smiling at customers, found herself humming while she worked. Mrs. Henderson noticed immediately. "Well now, someone is in a good mood." Would that have anything to do with a certain tall cowboy, perhaps? Abigail could not quite hide her smile. "I am glad, dear. You deserve some happiness." The old woman patted her hand. "Your mother would be so pleased." That thought stayed with Abigail. Would her mother be pleased? Or would she warn her away, knowing how badly love could turn out? But maybe Grant was right. Maybe the lesson was not to avoid love, but to choose carefully. Grant came by Wednesday with an invitation. "Patterson is throwing a barn dance Saturday for his son's 18th birthday. Whole county is invited. Would you come with me?" Abigail hesitated. Public events meant people would talk, would assume they were courting. Which they were, she supposed, but making it public felt like admitting something she was not sure she was ready to admit. "I am not much of a dancer." "Neither am I. We can be terrible together." His grin was infectious. "Come on, it will be fun. And I promise to protect you from any overeager dance partners." "All right, but if I step on your feet, do not say I did not warn you." Saturday evening, Grant arrived in his best clothes, his dark hair still damp from washing. He looked handsome enough to make Abigail's breath catch. She had worn a simple green dress, nothing fancy, but his reaction made her feel like she was wearing silk. "You are going to be the most beautiful woman there." Flatterer. Honest man. He offered his arm. Ready, the Patterson ranch was ablaze with lanterns, and music spilled from the large barn. Dozens of people milled about, eating, drinking, and laughing. Abigail recognized most of them from her store, and several looked surprised to see her there with Grant. "Miss Palmer, never thought I would see you at a dance," called out one of the miners. "Full of surprises, I am," she replied lightly. Grant kept her close as they navigated the crowd. He introduced her to the Patterson family, to the other ranch hands, to everyone who approached. His pride in being with her was obvious, and something about that made Abigail stand a little straighter. When the dancing started, Grant led her onto the floor for a simple waltz. He was not the best dancer, but he was steady and sure, and he made her laugh when they nearly collided with another couple. "Told you I was terrible," he said, spinning her carefully. "You are not terrible. You are just enthusiastic." She was surprised by how much she was enjoying herself. They danced 3 more dances before taking a break for refreshments. Standing at the edge of the barn, watching people laugh and dance, Abigail felt something unfamiliar. It took her a moment to identify it as happiness. "What are you thinking?" Grant asked, handing her a glass of lemonade. "That I have forgotten what it feels like to just enjoy an evening, to be part of something, to not be alone." She looked up at him. "Thank you for bringing me. Thank you for coming. I know this is hard for you, being around so many people, letting them see us together." "It is. But it is also nice. I did not realize how isolated I had become until I stepped outside of it." She sipped her lemonade. "I think I have been hiding, not just protecting myself. Big realization. It is, and it is terrifying." She smiled slightly, "but maybe also necessary." They stayed until late, and on the drive home, Abigail found herself thinking about her mother. Really thinking about her, not just the sad woman who had wasted away, but the young bride in the photographs who had been so full of hope. Had she had evenings like this with Abigail's father before everything went wrong? Had there been good times that Abigail had forgotten or never known about? "You are quiet," Grant observed. "Just thinking about my parents, wondering if they had happy times before everything fell apart." "I am sure they did. Nobody stays with someone through bad times unless there were good times to remember." He glanced at her. "Maybe your mother was not just holding on to false hope. Maybe she was holding on to real memories of real love that just went wrong. That is generous of you. Or maybe just realistic. People are complicated, relationships are complicated, but that does not mean they are not worth having." He pulled the wagon to a stop in front of her store. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "At the end of this month, what do you think you will say? Do you think I will have changed your mind about love?" His voice was serious now, vulnerable in a way she had not heard before. Abigail took a breath. Honesty seemed important. "I think you already have. I think you have been changing my mind every day since we made that bargain. But that does not mean I am not still scared. I am scared too. This matters to me, Abigail. You matter to me. And that is terrifying because it means I could lose something I care about." He turned to face her fully. "But I would rather be scared and alive than safe and empty. You have taught me that. I taught you, watching you try, watching you push through your fear even though it is hard. That takes courage. That inspires courage." He touched her face. "You are remarkable, Abigail Palmer." This time when he leaned in, Abigail did not pull away. Their first kiss was gentle, tentative, a question more than a statement. She answered by kissing him back, her hands coming up to rest on his chest. His heart pounded under her palm as fast as her own. When they parted, she was breathless. "Oh, oh indeed." His smile was tender. "Worth waiting for." "Yes." She touched her lips, still feeling the warmth of his. "Very much worth waiting for." He walked her to her door, and this time he kissed her again, longer and deeper. Abigail felt her walls crumbling, felt herself falling, and for once she was not terrified. She was exhilarated. "Good night, Abigail." "Good night, Grant." She watched him drive away, then floated upstairs. Lying in bed, she touched her lips and smiled in the darkness. She was falling in love. It should have terrified her. Instead, it felt like coming home. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of happiness Abigail had never expected to feel. Grant came by the store almost daily, sometimes for supplies, sometimes just to see her. They took rides into the desert, had dinner at the canyon, spent Sunday afternoons reading together in the shade of her store's porch. He introduced her to his friends, and she found herself enjoying the company of others for the first time in years. But more than the activities, it was the small moments that changed her. The way he brought her coffee in the morning, made exactly how she liked it. The way he listened when she talked about her day, really listened, remembering details and asking follow-up questions. The way he made her laugh with terrible jokes and funny stories. The way he held her hand like it was something precious. They kissed often now, and each time it felt like discovering something new. Gentle kisses in the evening, passionate kisses stolen in quiet moments, sweet kisses that tasted like promises. Abigail had never known physical affection could be like this, tender and exciting all at once. "I love watching you become yourself," Grant said one evening as they sat on her porch watching the sunset. "When I first met you, you were so locked down. Now you smile freely, you laugh, you let yourself enjoy things. It is beautiful to witness." "I did not know I was locked down until you showed me what it felt like to be open." She leaned against his shoulder. "You have given me a gift, Grant. You have given me back my life. You did that yourself. I just held up a mirror." He kissed the top of her head. "But I am honored to have been part of your journey." With 1 week left in their month, Abigail knew she needed to tell him something she had been avoiding. They were having dinner at the restaurant in Hadley when she finally gathered her courage. "Grant, I need to tell you something." His face grew serious. "All right. When we started this, I was so sure you would fail. I was so certain that my walls were justified, that love was a trap, that I was better off alone." She took his hand across the table. "I wanted you to fail because if you failed, I could stay safe. I could stay locked down and never have to risk anything. I know, I saw that from the beginning, but you tried anyway, even knowing I was fighting you every step." She felt tears building. "Why? Why did you care so much about changing the mind of one bitter woman?" Grant was quiet for a moment, his thumb tracing patterns on her hand. "The first time I saw you, you were counting coins with this look of absolute concentration. You were beautiful, but that was not what caught me. It was the loneliness. You were in a room full of people and completely alone. And I recognized that because I had been there. I had been that person who thought being alone was safer than being hurt." He continued, "And I thought if I could just show her what I learned, if I could just help her see that walls are prisons, not protection, maybe she would have a chance at happiness. Maybe I could save her from years of the emptiness I experienced." He smiled. "But here is what I did not expect. I did not expect to fall in love with you." Abigail's breath caught. He had never said those words before. "Grant, I love you, Abigail Palmer. I love your strength and your stubbornness and the way you fight for what you believe in. I love how hard you work and how smart you are. I love the way you smile when you think no one is watching, and I love how you have slowly let me into your heart even though it scared you." He squeezed her hand. "I know this month is almost up. I know we agreed that at the end, you would decide if I had changed your mind about love. But before you decide, I need you to know that I love you, and if you give me the chance, I will spend the rest of my life proving that love does not have to end in heartbreak." Tears spilled down Abigail's cheeks, but for once they were not sad tears. "I love you too. I think I have loved you for weeks, but I was too scared to admit it, too scared to say it out loud because saying it made it real. And now I am still scared, but I am more scared of losing what we have. I am more scared of going back to that empty life where I did not feel anything." She stood, pulling him up with her. "Our month is not up yet, but I do not need more time. You have changed my mind, Grant Owens. You have shown me that love is not my mother's tragedy. It can be laughter and companionship and partnership and joy. It can be safe and wild all at once. It can be real." Grant pulled her into his arms right there in the restaurant, not caring about the other diners. He kissed her deeply, and Abigail kissed him back with all the love and hope she had been holding in. When they finally pulled apart, the restaurant burst into applause. Abigail blushed, but she was laughing, and Grant was grinning like he had won the lottery. "Marry me," he said suddenly. "What? Marry me, Abigail. Not because our month is up, not because of any bargain. Marry me because I love you and you love me, and because life is too short to wait when you know something is right." His eyes were bright and sincere. "I promise I am not your father. I promise I will be a partner, not a burden. I promise to work hard, stay honest, and love you every single day for the rest of my life. I promise our story will be different." Abigail thought about her mother, about the young woman in the photographs who had taken a chance on love. She thought about Grant's parents, who had built a happy life together before fever took them. She thought about all the couples she had seen over the years, both happy and sad, successful and tragic. But mostly she thought about the man standing before her, the man who had seen past her walls, who had been patient and kind and persistent. The man who made her laugh and held her when she cried. The man who had given her back her life. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I will marry you." Grant lifted her off her feet, spinning her around while the restaurant erupted in cheers again. When he set her down, they were both laughing and crying at once. "I do not have a ring yet," he said, "but I will get you one, the best one I can afford." I do not need a ring, I just need you." But she was touched by the thought. They left the restaurant floating on joy and drove back to Sloan under stars that seemed brighter than usual. At her door, Grant kissed her goodnight with a tenderness that made her ache. "How soon can we get married?" he asked. "As soon as you want." "There is no preacher in Sloan right now, but there is one in Hadley. We could go next week if you want." "Next week sounds perfect." He kissed her again. "I love you, Abigail Palmer." "I love you too, Grant Owens, more than I ever thought possible." The next few days were a whirlwind of preparation. Abigail found a simple white dress that fit well, and Mrs. Henderson insisted on making her a veil. Word spread through Sloan quickly, and to Abigail's surprise, people were genuinely happy for her. Customers congratulated her, offered gifts, shared stories of their own marriages. "Never thought I would see the day," one old miner said, "but that cowboy is a good man. You chose well." Abigail realized he was right. She had chosen well, and that was different from her mother's experience. Her mother had been swept away by charm and promises. Abigail had made a conscious choice with eyes open, knowing the risks but believing in the possibility. Grant found a simple gold band for her, nothing fancy but beautiful in its simplicity. "It was my mother's," he said when he gave it to her. "My father gave it to me before he died, said to give it to the woman I loved. I want you to have it." "Grant, I cannot take your mother's ring." "She would want you to. She would love you, Abigail. You are strong like she was, practical but with a soft heart underneath." He slipped it onto her finger. "It fits perfectly. That has to be a sign." The wedding was set for the following Saturday in Hadley. They invited only close friends, wanting to keep it simple and intimate. The morning of her wedding, Abigail stood in front of her mirror and tried to calm her racing heart. She was not nervous about marrying Grant, she was certain about that. But she was nervous about everything it meant, about the vulnerability of promising forever. A knock came at her door and Mrs. Henderson entered with the veil. "Let me help you, dear." As the old woman arranged the veil, she spoke softly. "Your mother would be so proud of you, not just for finding love, but for having the courage to embrace it. I wish she could be here. Maybe she is, in her own way. Love does not end with death, you know. It transforms, but it does not end." Mrs. Henderson turned Abigail to face the mirror. "Beautiful. That cowboy is a lucky man. I think I am the lucky one." "No, dear. You are both lucky. That is how it should be." Grant was waiting at the church, handsome in a new suit, his green eyes bright when he saw her. They stood before the preacher with their hands clasped, speaking vows that felt like both a promise and a prayer. "I, Grant, take you, Abigail, to be my wife. I promise to love you in joy and in sorrow, in sickness and in health, in plenty and in want. I promise to be honest, faithful, and true. I promise to be your partner and your friend, to build a life with you based on trust and respect. I promise this before God and these witnesses, from this day forward, as long as we both shall live." Abigail repeated the vows, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. When the preacher pronounced them married and Grant kissed her, she felt something click into place, like a key turning in a lock. This was right. This was real. This was love. The small reception afterward was joyful and warm. People danced and ate and celebrated, and Abigail found herself in the center of it all, laughing and happy. At one point, she caught Grant's eye across the room, and the look of pure love on his face took her breath away. They left the party early, eager to start their life together. Grant had rented a small house near the Patterson Ranch, nothing fancy but clean and well-maintained. He carried her over the threshold and they stood in the simple parlor, suddenly alone for the first time as husband and wife. "Hello, Mrs. Owens," Grant said softly. "Hello, Mr. Owens." Abigail smiled. That is going to take some getting used to. We have the rest of our lives to get used to it. He pulled her close. Thank you for taking a chance on me. Thank you for letting me prove you wrong about love. Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for seeing past my walls. She rested her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. I was so wrong, Grant. Love is not my mother's tragedy. This is what love is supposed to be. They spent their wedding night discovering each other, learning the language of love in whispers and touches and shared breath. Abigail had been nervous, but Grant was patient and gentle, making her feel cherished and safe. Afterward, lying in his arms, she felt a peace she had never known existed. I love you, she whispered into the darkness. I love you too, always. His arms tightened around her. Get some sleep, my love. We have a whole life ahead of us. The next months were a period of adjustment and joy. Abigail continued running her store, but now Grant helped her when he could, using his days off to handle heavy shipments and make repairs. They worked well together, anticipating each other's needs, falling into an easy rhythm. Their evenings were spent cooking together, reading aloud, talking about their days. Grant taught Abigail to play cards, and she taught him to keep proper accounts. They laughed often, argued occasionally about small things, and made up quickly. Their house became a home filled with warmth and love, but it was not all easy. 3 months into their marriage, a harsh winter storm damaged part of the store's roof. Repairs were expensive, and money was tight. Abigail felt the old panic rising, the fear of not being able to manage, of everything falling apart. Grant found her crying at the kitchen table over the accounts. Hey, what is wrong? We cannot afford the repairs. I have been over these numbers a dozen times, and we just do not have enough. She looked up at him with frightened eyes. What if we lose the store? What if I cannot make this work? Grant sat beside her, pulling her into his arms. We will figure it out together. That is what partners do. But what if we cannot? What if? Abigail, look at me. He waited until she met his eyes. We are going to be fine. Yes, money is tight right now. Yes, we have a problem to solve, but we are smart, we are hardworking, and we are together. We will find a solution. How can you be so calm? Because I have faith in us, in you. You have survived worse than a damaged roof, and now you do not have to survive alone. He kissed her forehead. Tell me about the repairs. What exactly needs to be done? They worked through the night, making plans, exploring options. Grant suggested asking Patterson for a small loan, promising to work extra hours to pay it back. Abigail was reluctant to ask for help, but Grant reminded her that accepting help was not weakness. We are part of a community now. Communities help each other. That is the whole point. Patterson agreed to the loan without hesitation. You are good people. I know you will pay me back when you can. No rush. The repairs were made, and Abigail and Grant worked extra hard over the next months to repay the debt. It was exhausting, but they did it together, and somehow that made it bearable. When they finally made the last payment, they celebrated with a quiet dinner at home. We did it, Abigail said, raising her glass. We actually did it. Of course we did. I never doubted us. Grant clinked his glass against hers. To us, to partnership, to facing hard things together, to love, Abigail added, to taking chances and letting yourself be vulnerable, and all the other terrifying things that turn out to be wonderful. That night, as they lay in bed, Abigail found herself thinking about her mother again. But this time the thoughts were not painful. She understood now, at least a little, why her mother had stayed. Not because she was weak, but because she remembered moments like this, moments of connection and partnership. Her mother's tragedy was not that she loved, but that the man she loved could not overcome his demons. What are you thinking about? Grant asked, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her arm. My mother. How I understand her better now. how love is worth the risk, but also how lucky I am that you are who you are, that you keep your promises, that you are strong enough to be gentle." She turned to face him. "Thank you for being you, Grant. Thank you for giving me the chance to be me with you." He kissed her softly. "And for the record, I am the lucky one." A year into their marriage brought news that filled Abigail with joy and terror in equal measure. She was pregnant. When the doctor confirmed it, she sat in his office feeling her entire world shift. Grant was working at the ranch when she got home, so she had hours to process the information alone. A baby. She was going to be a mother. The responsibility of it felt overwhelming. What if she was not good enough? What if she made mistakes? What if something happened to Grant and she ended up like her mother, alone and struggling? When Grant came home that evening, he found her sitting in the dark parlor. "Abigail, what is wrong? Are you sick?" "I am pregnant." The words came out flat, shock making her voice strange. Grant froze for a moment, then his face split into the biggest smile she had ever seen. "Really, we are having a baby?" "Yes. The doctor confirmed it today." She watched his joy and felt tears start. "Grant, I am terrified." He was beside her instantly, pulling her into his arms. "Of course you are. This is huge. But we are going to be amazing parents, Abigail. I know we are." "How can you know that? What if I am terrible at this? What if I repeat my parents' mistakes?" All her fears spilled out. "What if something happens to you and I am left alone with a child?" "Nothing is going to happen to me. I am careful, I am healthy, and I plan to be around for a very long time." He tilted her face up. "But even if something did happen, you would not be alone. You have friends now, a community. And you are strong enough to handle anything." "I do not feel strong right now. I feel scared. Being scared and being strong are not opposites, love. You can be both." He placed his hand on her still flat stomach. "Our baby, we made a baby. That is incredible." His wonder was infectious. Abigail found herself smiling despite her fears. "It is pretty incredible, isn't it? The most incredible thing ever." He kissed her deeply. "Thank you. Thank you for this gift." Over the following months, Abigail's fear gradually transformed into excitement. Grant was attentive and loving, taking on more of the heavy work in the store, making sure she rested enough. He read books about babies, asked other fathers for advice, and planned for their child's future with an enthusiasm that made Abigail fall in love with him all over again. The pregnancy was not easy. Abigail suffered from terrible morning sickness for the first few months, and the desert heat made the later months uncomfortable. But through it all, Grant was there, holding her hair when she was sick, bringing her cool water when she was hot, rubbing her swollen feet in the evenings. "I look like a whale," Abigail complained one evening in her 8th month. "You look like the most beautiful woman in the world carrying our child." Grant kissed her rounded belly. "And I love every inch of you. You are required to say that. You are my husband. I am saying it because it is true. You have never been more beautiful to me than you are right now." He meant it. She could see it in his eyes, and it made her cry, which happened a lot lately. Labor started on a hot July day in 1884. Mrs. Henderson came to help, along with the doctor from Hadley. Grant stayed close, holding Abigail's hand through the contractions, wiping her face with cool cloths, murmuring encouragements. "I cannot do this," Abigail gasped during a particularly hard contraction. "Yes, you can. You are the strongest person I know." Grant's voice was steady even though she could see the fear in his eyes. "Just breathe. I am right here." After hours of labor, their son was born just as the sun was setting. The doctor placed the tiny, squalling infant on Abigail's chest, and she felt her heart expand in a way she had not known was possible. "A boy," she whispered, staring at the tiny face. "We have a son." Grant was crying openly, his hand gentle on the baby's back. "He is perfect." Abigail, he is absolutely perfect. They named him Thomas Owen Owens after Grant's father. Tommy, they called him, and he was indeed perfect. Tiny fingers and toes, a shock of dark hair and gray eyes like his mother. Abigail spent the first weeks in a daze of love and exhaustion, learning to nurse, learning to change diapers, learning to function on almost no sleep. Grant was a devoted father from the start. He walked Tommy when he cried at night, changed diapers without complaint, and stared at his son with an expression of pure wonder. Watching him with their baby, Abigail fell even more deeply in love with her husband. "Thank you," she said one night as Grant rocked Tommy to sleep. "For what?" "For this, for our family, for showing me that love does not have to be tragic, for being nothing like my father," she smiled. "For everything." Grant came to sit beside her, Tommy asleep in his arms. "Thank you for taking a chance on a persistent cowboy. Thank you for letting me love you. Thank you for this beautiful boy." He kissed her softly. "You have given me everything I ever wanted." The years that followed were full and rich. Tommy grew into a bright, energetic toddler who kept them on their toes. The store continued to thrive, and Grant eventually became foreman at the Patterson Ranch. They built a larger house with room for their growing family. When Tommy was 3, Abigail became pregnant again. This time the pregnancy was easier, and she was less afraid. She knew what to expect, and more importantly, she trusted in their partnership. Their daughter was born in the spring of 1887, a tiny girl with Grant's green eyes and a head full of dark curls. "Mary," Abigail said, holding her daughter for the first time. "After your mother." Grant's eyes filled with tears. "She would have loved that. She would have loved you. I wish I could have met her. I wish both our mothers could have met their grandchildren." It was bittersweet, this joy mixed with loss. "I think they know. Somehow I think they know." Grant gathered his family close. "And I think they are proud of us, of what we have built." Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. Tommy started school, and Mary grew from a baby into a curious toddler. Abigail and Grant worked hard, but they also made time for joy, for family picnics and evening rides and quiet moments after the children were asleep. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Grant surprised Abigail with a trip back to the canyon where they had their first real date. They left the children with Mrs. Henderson and rode out in the early morning, arriving at the canyon just as the sun made the red rocks glow. "Remember this place?" Grant asked, helping her dismount. "How could I forget? This is where you started breaking down my walls." Abigail walked to the stream, which still sang over smooth stones. "I was so determined not to let you in, and I was so determined to prove you wrong." He came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Best thing I ever did. Best thing I ever did was say yes to your crazy challenge." She leaned back against him. "I love you, Grant, more now than I did on our wedding day. Same here. You just keep getting more amazing." He turned her to face him. 5 years. 5 beautiful years. Here is to 50 more." They spread a blanket and ate the lunch they had packed, talking about their children, their plans, their dreams. The conversation flowed easily as it always did, and Abigail marveled at how natural this had become. She remembered the terrified, closed-off woman she had been and barely recognized herself. "What are you smiling about?" Grant asked. "Just thinking about how much I have changed, how much we have changed." She took his hand. "Remember when I laughed at the idea of love? When I was so certain it was just a trap? And I said, give me 1 month to change your mind. You did it in less time than that, if I am being honest. I was already falling in love with you by the 2nd week." She kissed him. "Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for seeing something in me I could not see in myself. You always had it in you, Abigail. You just needed someone to show you it was safe to let it out." He pulled her close. "And thank you for being brave enough to try. Thank you for taking the biggest risk of your life." They stayed at the canyon until evening, making love in the shelter of the cottonwood trees, talking about everything and nothing, simply being together. On the ride home, Abigail felt profound gratitude for the life she had built, for the man beside her, for the family waiting at home. More years passed in happiness. Tommy grew tall and strong, showing an aptitude for both business and ranching. Mary was bright and curious, always asking questions and exploring the world around her. In 1891, Abigail and Grant welcomed another son, James, and their family felt complete. The store continued to prosper, becoming known as the most reliable in the region. Grant became Patterson's right-hand man and eventually partner in the ranch. They were respected members of their community, known for their hard work and their generous spirits. On a warm evening in the summer of 1895, Abigail sat on their porch watching Grant play with their children. Tommy was 15 now, nearly a man, but he still laughed at his father's jokes. Mary, at 8, was determined to learn to rope, and Grant was patiently teaching her. Little James, just 4, was running in circles shouting with joy. Mrs. Henderson, now quite elderly, sat beside Abigail. "You have a beautiful family." "I do. Sometimes I still cannot believe it is real." Abigail smiled. "Do you remember when I used to say love was foolish? That it only led to pain?" "I remember. I also remember thinking how sad it was, such a young woman so convinced of such a bitter truth." The old woman patted her hand. "I am glad you found someone who proved you wrong." "So am I. Grant changed my whole life. He showed me that my mother's story did not have to be my story, that love could be different, better, real and lasting." Abigail watched her husband lift James onto his shoulders. "He gave me everything I did not know I wanted. And you gave him the same. That is what good love looks like, dear. Both people growing, both people giving, both people choosing each other every day." That night, after the children were asleep, Abigail and Grant sat together on the porch under the stars. This had become their ritual, this quiet time together after the chaos of the day. 13 years, Abigail said, referring to their wedding anniversary, which was coming up soon. 13 years of marriage. Best 13 years of my life. Grant kissed her temple, and it just keeps getting better. I used to think that was impossible, you know. That relationships naturally declined, became stale, fell apart, but ours just deepens. She turned to look at him. "Why do you think that is?" "Because we work at it, because we choose each other every day. Because we remember what brought us together and we build on it instead of taking it for granted." He smiled. "And because I married my best friend. I married mine too." Abigail kissed him. "Thank you, Grant, for everything, for the life we have built, for our children. For proving me wrong about love. Thank you for letting me. Thank you for being brave enough to change your mind." He held her close. "I love you, Abigail Owens, today and always. I love you too. Forever." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars and listening to the desert night. Inside, their children slept safely. Around them, the life they had built together thrived. Abigail thought about the bitter, lonely woman she had been, the woman who had laughed at the idea of love. She barely recognized that person now. Grant had kept his promise. He had changed her mind in a month, though it had taken longer for her to fully embrace what she knew in her heart. He had shown her that love was not her mother's tragedy. It could be laughter and partnership and family and home. It could be safe and wild and comfortable and exciting all at once. It could be exactly what she and Grant had built together. "What are you thinking about?" Grant asked, as he so often did. "About how happy I am. About how glad I am that you walked into my store that day. About how my whole life changed because a cowboy said, 'Give me 1 month to change your mind.'" She smiled up at him. Best decision I ever made letting you try. Best decision I ever made asking. He kissed her deeply. Come on, let's go to bed. Another busy day tomorrow. They went inside, checking on their sleeping children before retiring to their own room. As Abigail fell asleep in her husband's arms, she sent a silent thank you to her mother. Thank you for showing me that love matters, even when it is hard. Thank you for teaching me, in your own way, that the human heart needs connection. And thank you for making me strong enough to take the risk when it finally came. More years flowed by like water in the desert, precious and sustaining. Tommy grew into a fine young man and eventually took over running the store, having inherited both his mother's business sense and his father's integrity. Mary, fiercely independent, surprised everyone by becoming a teacher, using her natural curiosity to inspire young minds. James showed an early talent for working with horses and became Grant's shadow, learning everything his father could teach him. Abigail and Grant grew older together, their hair turning gray, their faces gaining lines from years of laughter and life. But their love never dimmed. If anything, it grew stronger, deepened by shared experiences and weathered storms. On their 25th wedding anniversary in 1907, their children threw them a party. The house was full of friends and family, laughter and music filling every corner. At one point, Grant pulled Abigail aside to the porch away from the crowd. 25 years, he said, wonder in his voice. Quarter of a century with the love of my life. Has it been that long? It feels like yesterday you walked into my store and started pestering me. But her smile was soft. Best pestering I ever did. He pulled her close for a dance, humming the melody since they could hear the music from inside. Do you remember what you said when I first asked to court you? You said I was wasting my time. I was wrong. You were investing your time in the best possible way. She rested her head on his shoulder. You saved me, Grant, from loneliness, from bitterness, from a half-life. You showed me what it means to truly live. We saved each other. I was just as lost as you, just in a different way. We found each other at exactly the right time. He kissed the top of her head. I love you, Abigail. I will love you until my last breath and beyond. And I love you. Thank you for not giving up on the bitter store owner who laughed at love. Thank you for seeing past my walls. Thank you for giving me 1 month that turned into a lifetime. They danced under the stars, the same stars that had witnessed their courtship all those years ago. Inside, their children watched them with smiles. That's what love looks like, Mary said to her brothers. That's what I want someday. They are pretty amazing, Tommy agreed. Never seen two people more perfect for each other. James, now a young man of 16, nodded. Dad always says Mom changed his life, but I think they changed each other's lives. The party lasted late into the night, and when everyone finally left, Abigail and Grant sat on their porch in their usual spot. Happy anniversary, my love, Grant said, handing her a small wrapped package. Inside was a beautiful leather-bound journal. On the first page, in Grant's careful handwriting, was an inscription. For all the stories still to come, I love you, forever G. It is perfect. Abigail felt tears building. After all these years, you still surprise me. I plan to keep surprising you for many more years. He smiled. What do you think? Another 25 years together, at least. Probably 50 more if I have anything to say about it. She kissed him. You are stuck with me, Grant Owens. Exactly where I want to be, stuck with you in this life we built, surrounded by the family we made. He pulled her close. No place I would rather be. As they sat together under the Nevada stars, Abigail thought about the journey that had brought them here. From that first day when a persistent cowboy had challenged her beliefs about love, through years of joy and struggle, laughter and tears, building a life and a family together. She had been so wrong about love. It was not a trap or a weakness. It was the greatest strength she had ever known. She laughed at the idea of love once, convinced it only brought pain. Then a cowboy said, "Give me 1 month to change your mind." He had done exactly that, and in doing so, had given her everything she never knew she needed. A partnership built on trust, a family full of love, a life rich with meaning and connection. "What are you smiling about?" Grant asked, noticing her expression. "Just thinking about how far we have come, how much has changed since that day you made me that bargain." She squeezed his hand. "Best bargain I ever made." "Same here, love. Same here." They sat in comfortable silence, two people who had found each other against the odds, who had built a life together in the harsh beauty of the Nevada desert, who had proven that love could be real and lasting and true. Their story was not her mother's tragedy. It was something entirely their own, a testament to the power of taking chances, being vulnerable, and choosing love even when it seemed safer to choose solitude. The desert wind blew gently, carrying with it the promise of tomorrow and all the tomorrows to come. Grant and Abigail Owens sat together, hand in hand, hearts intertwined, living proof that sometimes the greatest adventures begin with a simple challenge. "Give me 1 month to change your mind." And what a beautiful adventure it had turned out to be.